Today, marking the 40th anniversary of China launching its reform and opening up policy with the aim of transforming into a great modern socialist power. That goal appears within reach, but a number of obstacles lie in the way.
More than 700 million people lifted out of poverty in just 4 decades is testament, many would argue, to the success of Beijing's signature socialism with Chinese characteristics program. In 1978, then-leader Deng Xiaoping embraced agricultural reform, lowered trade barriers and loosened the shackles on the private sector. Marketization, WTO accession and greater exchange rate flexibility followed, transforming China into the world's second biggest economy. Now, President Xi Jinping faces a critical moment. Economic issues abound, including an aging population, huge inequality, and the subsequent risk of a middle-income trap when progress, as measured by per capita income, stalls. Add to that the fight for influence. While Deng advocated a strategy of hide your strength, bide your time, Xi wants China to be a global superpower, and that's led to tension with the US and others wary of Beijing's policies on trade, technology and market access. Deng's reform and open up remains the official Chinese mantra. The question is whether Xi's increasingly state-centric and globally assertive adaptation bolsters China's position or fatally undermines its potential.
This is Daybreak Asia. I'm Heidi Stroud-Watts in Sydney.
And I'm Sherry Yan in New York. China is marking 40 years since the opening of its economy to the world. The policies led by Deng Xiaoping spurred the greatest creation of wealth in history, lifting more than 700 million people out of poverty. Our China correspondent Tom McKenzie joins us from outside the Forbidden City in Beijing. So Tom, Xi Jinping due to speak this morning. What can we expect?
I think, Sherry, a key focus is going to be whether or not President Xi uses this anniversary as a platform, as an opportunity to announce further measures to open up other sectors of the economy. We're going to be listening in, of course, to see what he says more broadly about trade, what he says about industrial policy. There's skepticism, though, from many here that we're going to see any radical changes announced during this speech, because what many would see as President Xi's repudiation of Deng Xiaoping's legacy, whether that's on term limits, whether that's on the role of the state in private enterprise, or whether that's the role of China on the international stage. And certainly there is those concerns that are articulated when I spoke to Fred Hu, who is obviously a respected economist here in China. He's the chairman of Primavera Capital. He remembers, Fred Hu, when he was a youngster, seeing his teacher being dragged away during the Cultural Revolution. Then he worked through the period, the last 40 years, and became incredibly successful. He's a Harvard graduate. He was the chairman of Goldman Sachs here. He says this moment in China's history is absolutely pivotal. What we're seeing right now, this is an inflection point, he says, and he says he's seeing mirrors of the late 1980s, early 1990s in terms of the challenges that China is facing. Take a listen to Fred Hu, chairman of Primavera Capital.
The combination of precious challenges we're facing right now on the economic front domestically, and also the challenges, problems we're facing externally, and you know, business confidence, investor confidence, or even just the broader public confidence now has been weakening. I would say even patience is running thin right now, because people have been expecting stronger, deeper reforms. The leaders in China should not wait any longer.
How would you categorize this moment in the context of recent modern Chinese history?
Well, I would compare this to the period between 1989 and then 1992. So that was also a period filled with the tremendous uncertainty, concerns, and worries, whether China would continue to reform or stop or even just reverse. Fortunately, thankfully, that came to an end when Deng Xiaoping made his now famous southern tour to Shenzhen. So that jump-started the reforms. So we very much hope our current leaders will do the same.
What is their take on the priorities for reform and opening from this period now going forward?
I do believe the Chinese leaders, the current leaders, continue to have the commitment to deepening economic reform. But obviously, at any given time, the priority may change. Fundamentally, they need to focus on building rule of law, transparency, and the level playing field. The fact that there was so much corruption going on is simple. It's just the state, the people in power have too much power, and without the checks and balances, without the transparency. So that's why deregulation is so important.
So Fred Hu's saying that he thinks that Chinese political leaders do have the skills and do have the tools at their disposal to be able to enact reforms, but he says that the business community particularly is running out of patience. We'll see today whether President Xi addresses any of those concerns in this speech marking the 40th anniversary of reform and opening that's going to be taking place at the Great Hall of the People just behind me here in Beijing.